Welcome to the Heartwork podcast, where we delve into stories, struggles, and triumphs of entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal growth. I'm Dr. Sara.
And I'm Dr. Marisa. We're here to guide practitioners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and those just navigating the complexities of life on a journey of discovery that explores the dance between passion and strategy, heart and hustle.
With candid conversations, insightful interviews, and plenty of laughs, get ready to uncover how leading with heart can transform your business and life. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Heartwork podcast. Today, we are in part 2 of our startup, expansion, and selling your practice or brick and mortar. And so today we're going to talk all things about when it is time to expand your business. What does that actually look like in expanding your space? How do you know what you're going to feel when that time starts to come along and that little thought starts to creep in and say, hey, maybe we're meant for more. Maybe it's time to open things up. And so, Sara, that's kind of the first question that I want to ask you, as you have done this beautifully and are a couple years out from your expansion now. So how did you know during that time that it really was like Freedom's next step was to expand the amount of space and expand the brick and mortar and open up your practice and your team for more?
That's a great question. And as I was just listening to you, I actually remembered. So when we first kind of got the bug about expanding, it was actually right when you were opening the first homestead, which is kind of crazy, actually. So just to give a little story of my location, I locked in a beautiful, really low rent. I don't even know how this happened, but I ended up getting a really low rent for my lease. And we were getting right next to us was a title company that we had from the beginning kind of have just put it out in the universe. How fun would it be to knock down these walls and be able to expand into the space next door? And it was actually February of 2020. And we had reached a volume that was at that point was okay, we're hitting some sticky points with just flow and some of our efficiency standards, and could definitely feel a little bit of some stretch when it came to how effective we would be able to continue to impact our community if we wanted to continue to grow. And so it started to put a little bug in my ear, a little bit of okay, what would this look like? And I actually reached out to a landlord, reached out to my broker at the time to talk to the space. I actually went and talked to Melrose Title that was next door. I just kind of was putting some plugs in to say hey, is this actually something that you guys are curious about, or how long are you guys going to stay here? And they were actually getting ready to move. And so, which was kind of this wow, holy crap, are we ready to do this? All this type of stuff. And so because they were getting ready to move, it kind of almost put me in this place oh crap, do I need to make this decision now? And are we ready to do this? And truly this was February 2020. And so I just, in that moment, it was just wowzers, this just feels like a lot. This is not the right time. And so grateful. Let's listen to it. I can't imagine having to do what we did. As I was just as you were entering that, I was wow, I forgot about that part of it. So we put a hold on that space. And obviously COVID hit and it was all that wild journey for everybody. And while we continued to grow and we continued to see a huge impact within our community, and that dream, for me at least, never went away. And I do want to put a disclaimer on this is, I know for me, when I've watched other business owners, other chiropractors specifically, a lot of times the journey is kind of similar. We see a framework that other chiropractors start a business, they grow to a certain size, and then they expand. They either build out another building, they buy a building, they get a bigger space, they do all these types of things. I do want to put a disclaimer out there that may not necessarily be your journey. It doesn't have to be. So I've had to learn this as well of what is it that it's actually for me specifically versus what I've just seen everybody else do. And it's their story, so I'm going to make it my own. And so because it really may not be. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to grow into these big practices, have multiple satellite locations, or hire other docs to be able to make more impact, that type of stuff. It doesn't really have to be that for you to continue making an impact in your community. So just want to put a little disclaimer on that. But we started that. For me, that dream was still there. We started that coming out of 21 into 22, all of a sudden that space was still vacant. And we were just, okay, could this actually work? Are we curious about expanding? Do we have the capacity? Financially, we were in a beautiful spot to be able to do that. We had reached continued growth to where it was like, man, if we had more rooms, if we had more adjustment rooms, if I want to add doctors in this space, I only had 3 adjustment rooms. So it was just we were kind of just running into some clogs along the way. And so it sent us on this beautiful journey of an expansion. And when we actually did all of it, so my specific space was I went from 1,700 square feet. We did knock down the walls. We went to 3,800 square feet. And so that itself is just a unique journey. It's not going to be everybody's when you're looking at expansion. Sometimes you're actually going to look at purchasing a building, or you're going to look at moving buildings completely. And so I kind of want to just talk through a little bit of just the things to think about if you are at a point where you're like, hey, I'm ready to expand. I'm thinking about this, or I'm dreaming of this in the next couple of years. Thing to start thinking about, because it is very similar to starting a practice. It really is, or starting a business in a brick or mortar. It's very, very similar. There are some navigations when it comes to team and operations and stuff like that that will just flow and be something that you just need to think about. So like I was saying, for me, the natural rhythm was 100% to knock down walls. I did look around our area for other spaces that would potentially be more advantageous, but the rent itself was literally probably $30 more expensive than where I was at currently. So I actually looked at purchasing building, but where I'm located, the commercial real estate also at that point was just not favorable. And I'd have to move a lot farther away from the current location that I was at. So that would be something that when you're thinking about expanding, always recommend typically, can your people then, if they're used to getting to you in a certain radius, is that close? Is it going to be close enough for you to be able to? Because otherwise, like let's say that you don't have a space, I would then encourage potentially looking at a satellite location instead would open up and you can't find something right next door. So making sure that you're obviously, if you are looking at a different location, same types of things as a startup, that you're looking at your part. And then for us too, like we had to navigate all the little thoughts of, okay, we're getting ready to knock down walls. How do we plan this out? So we had to literally plan out architectural drawings for one stage of construction, and then architectural drawings for the second stage of construction. And we had to plan out operational movement for
because you didn't want to close during this process. And this wasn't
Correct.
like a quick knock down walls over a weekend project. You still had the other space you needed to fully build out.
Right.
Or was it a completely like gray shell, vanilla shell? Or you said there was a title company in there, so they just had it organized to their liking?
Right. Yeah. So by just like the way that the building was shaped, we lucked out a lot in where our current adjustment rooms are. We actually buddied up to 3 other rooms. So thankfully on that side of it, we didn't have to do a lot of work for the actual adjustment room flow. However, it was not a gray shell. It was a completely different. It was a previous company that we did have to come in and do our own maneuvering of some walls. But I also am kind of the type of person, can I utilize rooms the way that they're already laid out so I have the least amount of construction as possible? But we did not want to close. We wanted to stay open because, again, like serving our people at the highest impact is going to be one of the biggest things for us, so that we didn't have to shut down. We didn't have to do any of that. And we didn't have to shut down one bit. It naturally worked to where it worked to when we were transitioning from the one stage to the other stage. It fell over Christmas break. And so we were actually already closed. So we lined it up to where they actually put up this like partition wall that blocked off our one side. We literally cut off our lobby. We were doing scans in our freaking lobby because we went from 2 assessment rooms. We had to go from 3 adjustment rooms to 2 adjustment rooms. And then our 1 adjustment room turned into an assessment room, and we put an assessment room in an x-ray. And then we were doing adjusting in the lobby. Our lobby was super small. From the journey of COVID, we did a lot of people were talking to us on Sked, is one of the systems that we use to communicate when people come in and check in and text back and forth. And so we actually had people stay in the car, and we would only let about 4 to 6 people in our lobby because we just didn't have space. So we just operationally navigated that differently. So it was fun. It was wild. So So yeah, to back up just a little bit, the journey financially, when we're looking at like loan stuff, I think an expansion honestly was way easier than a startup. Because for one, you have reputation, your bank. At that point, I had paid off my original business loan. So financially, we were in a really beautiful spot. It does typically require, unless you just have cash on hand. I did not want to put cash on hand toward like actually building this out. It was going to be for other purposes. However, we did need a construction loan and we did need basically built in working capital for that. So it was a little bit of a bigger loan for us just because I also was building out kind of my dream space. And it was something that we were wanting to build in for growth and build in for the dream that we are going to be here for a lot longer. I did sign a lease for 10 years instead of my initial 5. So that was also something that was allowed us to be able to stay at the rate that we were, but it gave us the capacity to, again, I was dreaming for something that we were going to be here for longer. So just things to think about. And I know that something is if you are looking at purchasing a building, you're definitely going to be getting in for a higher ticket item. However, again, you're going to be navigating just the inevitable aspect of growth as well. So we definitely also, I knew we were going to be hiring more doctors and I knew I was going to be hiring more team. So, because I was anticipating, it's like kind of that thing from the movie where it says, if you build it, they will come, was pretty much kind of our thought process. And we were very strategic with that. So if we build it, they will come, we're going to see incredible growth because we were already in that trajectory and momentum with that. So
wow, that is a lot. You don't realize how much goes into the like nitty gritty and the granular process of figuring out all those moving pieces. So kind of like, what were there any other like unexpected challenges? Because as you said, it's similar to starting your own practice and starting your business from scratch. And you had to navigate some of the scheduling challenges just offshooting from COVID, but also like with the fact that you had less rooms and had construction in phases. Were there other like unexpected challenges that came up? How did you navigated this with your practice members? How did you navigate the expansion with your team and then wanting to hire more people on? Did they come on in the construction mode? Did you want to wait until the expansion was done before bringing in new team because you had more space? What did that look like?
So one of the first things, obviously, with any type of change is getting your team on board and getting them on vision for that. And so that was one of my biggest things. And like they had been dreaming this up with me. So I'm a big proponent of whether you're dreaming and you're sharing vision, it's like your team is like owning that just for themselves. And so they had known that this was on the horizon. It just wasn't like, when is this going to be moving? And so when I told them that, hey, this may be right now, or this is something that we're getting ready to do, are you guys here? Are you on board? Are you excited about this? And it was pretty much a unanimous yes. Everybody was so excited and ready to like get going. I think one of the challenges all of us kind of faced that moment is like, so our journey, if I hadn't said this yet, was a 13-month process from the original, like by the time we talked to a landlord, we were signing leases and all that. And it really probably was longer than that. But by the time I signed my lease in August of 21, we weren't fully in our next space, all completely done and finished until September of 22. And so, and that didn't include, again, like I was talking about, like talking to landlord, negotiating the lease, building out finances, all that type of stuff. So my team knew that there was a lot of things moving the beginning of 21. And so it was hard for us just to be patient almost and just be in the place of not wanting it just to be all of a sudden done and trying to plan for this huge project that was happening. And also just being, okay, like, well, what do we need to do today? And so we had to build out truly like an operational guide. And a couple of my team members helped me. I sat down with them to really navigate, okay, like this is the time frame. This is the time frame that was given to me from construction. This was a time frame for me from interior designer that I was working with. And then these are, as long as this timeline stays according to plan, these are the things that we need as operational team, making sure that we're supporting our practice members, make sure that we're supporting each other as we're doing this, along with just overall day-to-day function, because it's your business does not stop when these big projects are going on. So that was probably one of the, I think, just the like waiting. It's like, okay, get ready to just sit and wait type of a thing. The waiting was probably one of the hardest things for everybody. I think everything was just ready to go. We also had some transition out of some team as well, along the transition in. So we did navigate. I had 2 team members that transitioned out of our practice in 21 before we did some of our big remodel, the first initial phase of remodel. And so that itself, it did put us a little under. So then we were on a hiring game of just like, okay, let's make sure that we are prepped. But then also strategy wise of going from a really small, we didn't have a lot of space as we were in that first stage of construction. So we were trying to navigate like, how can we actually see the people that we need to do with a smaller team? And then when we get to our bigger team, that's when we would hire. So we actually did not hire till the start. We had the start of 2022. We had those 2 girls transition the end of 21, and we hired 3 people the start of 2022, which was wild and fun as well. So that was like at that point, again, I'm so grateful because at that stage, my desire was basically this perspective that I was going to be no longer just this like small business owner, right? That I needed to become a CEO, that I needed to have a perspective that was bigger than just showing up, doing the adjustments, doing a little bit of leadership of team. I need to be a CEO and develop this leadership team that they can do a lot of this. So this also kind of invigorated a lot of leadership within my team and really invigorated a lot of shifting and moving of empowerment for that so that we could really move some needle. I had already had some of these ladies really invested in some of their own coaching and some of their own stuff so that they felt super empowered. But it really did spur on a lot of y'all's potential I see the potential in you, but now you need to act on it because we are moving in this direction fast and we need to do this together. And I can't be the one to just do it anymore. And so I needed to trust them. They needed to trust themselves. And they also needed to trust me at the same time. So yeah, those were some of our various unexpected things. I think one of my other things that I would recommend for anybody going through a expansion, really trust the people that you have that are working on the project. I love the construction crew that I had. They were the ones that actually built out our first initial practice. And so loved them. Wasn't super pleased with my architect just through the journey because it was just a weird communication process. And she did an absolutely phenomenal job. I had chosen an individual that was out of state for our interior design. And the only thing that I would just suggest is potentially just look at people that are in your hometown that are local, because it just provided me to be more of a project manager through the project versus me be able to continue to do and lead it and lead my team. I had to be more in some of the nitty gritty, making sure the communication from the contractor to architect to interior designer was happening. And that was energy sucking, if I could gently put it. So, because like what we talked about on the startup, your role is not necessarily to be in the office or in your space, making sure construction is getting done. Like you're there to market, you're there to get the community ready and acknowledge that you are going to be coming and making a huge impact there. And it's the same. Like I needed to be leading my team. I needed to be continuing to make an impact as I was adjusting and obviously making sure that our people were taken very well care of. But now I had this other thing as well. So it definitely stretched me as well and really emptied a lot of my energy at times. It was a fun couple months for sure. So that'd be the only other thing that I would really invite you to consider. Yeah. Making sure people are all on the same page and have one project manager that's very aware of what's going on for a big project like that.
Oh, I bet it's a lot. And obviously, as you're the vision driver of the whole thing, it's easy for everyone to kind of fall back and refer to you. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're the one that's hiring out all these things. So you are the ultimate say so. But yes, if you can acquire a team and have a project manager of the actual team projects, that you're just kind of the CEO of that and can continue to spend your time, like you said, marketing, because you talked about with your team, like kind of, if I build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. But in what ways did you share this with your current, patient community and then grow excitement around the project versus just, oh yeah, we're expanding this to help serve you with space and time and potentially more docs. But then what did that also bring to your community and how did you get and garnish that word and excitement out there?
So we were really intentional with this, and because I didn't want to lose our momentum with our current growth mm-hmm. and with our current people. And so the minute that we knew that we were signing a lease and that we were going to expand, we started telling our people and we started getting them excited. Like just from the basic, I was talking to people in the current adjustment rooms we were talking about at the front. We also, as it got closer to actually doing construction, because we had literally a construction zone for phase one. It was absolutely wild. We had yellow tape everywhere. We had sawdust everywhere, like drywall. Like it wasn't clean. It was just crazy. It was so much fun. However, it was also crazy. So we used that to our advantage. Like for Halloween, we dressed up as construction workers. We put yellow tape everywhere. Like it was just like, we made it fun and we made it engaging. We gave a bunch of giveaways away that were just like for people still giving referrals and really sticking to their plans and that type of stuff too. We did a huge consistency challenge in the September when we were getting ready to do the construction, just to continue to keep people on their schedule. And then on social media, we were like hyping it up like crazy, just for, it's like, hey, we're building this out for you. We're building this out for our community as well. We gave some giveaways on there as well. As we got closer to Christmas time of 21, when we were knowing that we were going to be changing a lot of just the like big layout, because at that point we were going to be putting up this big wall and all of our assessment rooms were going to be moving, all that type of stuff. Just the communication process was one of our biggest things that I would encourage anybody. We had texts going out, we had emails going out, we had signs everywhere that people just knew that they were going to be coming back after Christmas to a completely different setup in our office. And like I had said already, we just had people didn't come into the lobby as much. So we just had to navigate flow, and we had treats everywhere. We just my team's energy was just super high, made sure that everybody was really well taken care of, just so that, again, they knew that they were just as important as this project was. When we got ready, so we kind of did two openings because of the way that this project had to be done. We, like I said, had phase one, phase two. Phase one was them finishing the project on the other side, to where we could, at that point, naturally shift our practice eventually to a little bigger space. It had 3 assessment rooms over there. We had a conference room. It was going to be the new brand colors. Like, we rebranded everything. So we were basically going to be shifting there. And we did that in June of 22. So as wild, it's so crazy when I'm actually talking about this. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we did this for 6 months. So it's wild. Like, we were literally in that small little teeny tiny space for 6 months and still grew our capacity, which is wild. So amazing. I'm so grateful. It's just kind of crazy. So when we switched over to the other space, we made it a big thing. We got some new swag. We got, basically, it was almost like a mini grand opening for that area. We had balloons everywhere. We had a bunch of giveaways that we were doing just to make sure that, again, people were so excited. People are ready. And we utilized that space from June to September. So we were over there for also 3 months while construction was still happening. And so we even, at one point, we had to pull down walls. So it was all fully open, and it was one side was not construction finished, and walls were open where kids could run it through. So we had to just make it fun, where people knew they had to be safe and had to be contained and all that type of stuff too. So we basically, like I said, kind of had a mini grand opening. And then by the time we officially opened, we were fully open to the public. We had a huge, basically come see us, and really excitement for that week. It was the middle of September that we were officially in our full space, made it a big thing on social media. We had a bunch of stuff in our office that was just really celebrating fully being done. And then our birthday kind of landed a month later, which was kind of nice. So this was actually our 7th birthday for Freedom. And so we did a huge party for our 7th birthday. So we had vendors, we had a bunch of giveaways. It was almost like if you were opening a practice, you had a huge ribbon cutting. We did our own ribbon cutting for the space. We didn't have the Chamber of Commerce, but you could totally have Chamber come and do that as well. We just did our own. We got a big ribbon. We got scissors. We had our whole community come out. We had bounce houses and cotton candy and balloon art and all the things that you do almost with a big old fall festival type thing, and had hundreds of our community members come and celebrate us and celebrate our birthday and that whole huge big old grand opening. So a lot of my team was doing a lot of prep work, obviously, up to that. So it was remarkable. And I remember, literally remember that night, there was so much beauty and so much celebration and all the work that had been done. And truly, we saw the huge growth from that point. When you build it, they come. It was very true. I had hired 2 docs up to that point. They had actually started in the space. So they started in July and August of 22, and before we were fully finished. So people were getting used to them as well. And our We had 3 more team members, like I had said, that were already hired in there. So we were really moving and grooving, trying to make sure that we were going to be able to see and really handle the continued impact in the community that was there. It's fun. It's fun to think about it all and think back on it. It's wild.
What a journey.
Mhm.
What a journey. It's like, what kind of advice do you have for someone else who's in this limbo phase, wondering if they're ready or not to expand? What would be like the top 3 questions you would want them to ask themselves in that moment to make sure that they're expanding, 1, for the right reasons, 2, with the right capacity, like with their heart first? How would you help guide them?
So I think one of my first initial priority questions that I would invite anybody to ask is it the right time? And does it feel natural and organic when it comes to your rhythm of your business, your rhythm of your team, and the rhythm of your capacity financially, and also your capacity as a CEO? If it's going to take you and completely strip you of all of your energy, and if it makes it to this place of a lot of, again, we've talked about this so many times, this tightness, this place to where you just have something deep in your gut that it's not the right time, I would listen to that. Don't do something just for the sake of doing it because everybody else has done it. And also, if it's exciting and if it just naturally flows, then heck yeah, go for it. And so that would probably be my first just invitation to consider and watch. Secondly, are you set up financially, and do you have the capacity to navigate that? Because we had so much beautiful growth when we first started. However, we have done a huge expansion, and your expansion, you will truly double your expenses. So do you have the capacity to, and the understanding of what your financial growth and also financial expenses are going to look like moving that forward? And do you have the capacity and the desire to have that happen? It has been a huge stretching year since then for me. And so life happens for us. 100% believe that. And so it's just definitely a big question to just make sure and meet with the people that you trust, whether that's a financial wealth advisor, accountant, whatever that looks like. Make sure that they are helping you answer those questions if you have the capacity and the means to do that. I think third would also be, does your team have also the capacity, and are they on board with it? It requires so much more of you to be able to do this, and your team needs to be on board. And so a question to ask them and to ask that you, are you willing and you able to put in the work and the systems behind it, and also the leadership behind it, so that they can move the meter with you? So those would be my 3, really kind of getting settled in your heart, financial stuff, and making sure your team's all on board.
Awesome.
Love it.
Is there anything you would do differently now if you were to expand again?
So I said this a little bit, where I would just make sure that everybody on the same team, especially on your construction, interior designer, architect team, they're all in the same know-how. I'd 100% recommend that, and really make sure that everybody is cued in, that they know the timeline, they know the rhythm to it, so that you can take a little bit more of a vision role versus having to be the project manager role. Otherwise, I am so freaking grateful for the journey that we went on. Again, it was for us, and I learned a lot from it. I wouldn't change a thing on the side of how we handled it. I think our team just excelled in it overall, and we've only continued to make such a huge impact. Our place is absolutely extraordinarily beautiful. I love it so much. It feels like us. It's basically how I transformed over the course of my first 6 years in practice, and who I was when we continued to expand. And so I'd also just, as you are thinking about who you are in your current state, if you're looking at expanding, things can also evolve and things can change. Like, we completely rebranded. We were really all of our colors were really dark. Like, my main fonts all changed, everything. We had a completely different theme. It feels way more like me. It feels more like us as a community. And so yeah, just beautiful things that you can continue to look at if you are looking at expanding. If I was to expand currently now, moving forward, I would not look at expanding into a bigger space. I will stick our space where we are. I will never do that again, just because I don't have to, for one. I think at this point, I would be looking at smaller, really profitable spaces in other areas, so that we can continue to allow our reach to grow and our impact to grow further, versus it just be stationary in one location. That would be for just where we are currently, that would be my next step for myself. And also just something to consider too. Is it something that you want a big old space to manage, or do you want to manage other locations that would be a little bit smaller? It's all going to still require different time, different stress. It's all just a variable of what that would look like for what your heart desires.
Or as life in your heart grows, maybe both.
Totally. Never know.
You never know. Leave it up. So thank you so much, Sara, for sharing about all of that. I'm like taking notes because I believe that Homestead will expand in the future. So yeah. I love all that. I love the heart journey that you went through it and all the nuggets that you learned for yourself and your team. I love how some team filtered out and allowed new space and team to filter in, as we've talked about the train analogy. And as you walked through that expansion, just like, especially hearing you talk so much how you felt that the place now really feels and honors everything that you wanted Freedom to embody and that you poured into it as well. So I absolutely love that, because I think that other people can really feel that as well when they walk into the space. And so when you have that authenticity that's not only just emanating from you, but emanating from the entire atmosphere and culture of the office, it really does make it an incredibly magical experience. And what a place of healing for others to come to. And I think that's incredible. So Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Heartwork podcast. If you liked what we discussed today, please subscribe, like, share, follow, give us a rating so that we can continue to help reach others to guide them to living their life with heart. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.